And when I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Jameson Williams has been so impressive these last couple of weeks.
Hello. What is going on, Russell? Welcome, everybody out there, to another episode of the Cover One NFL Draft Weekly Show, where we, of course, we're going around the NFL. We're talking about how free agency this week and trades can impact the NFL draft. And, breaking news, if you haven't seen it on Twitter, literally just about 3 minutes ago, Davante Adams heading to the Raiders in a huge trade, signing a 5-year, $141 million extension. I actually haven't even seen the compensation yet. The only thing I saw before going on air as I was prepping was it was 2 prime 2022 picks. So, it has to be
First round.
If it's out there, it has to be the 22nd overall pick. But the Raiders only have that one, I believe. So we'll get into that. That's crazy. AFC West is absolutely bonkers. So we'll get into that. We're going to talk about just free agency, what's been going on, obviously, for the Bills Mafia out there. We'll get into Bills Mafia. You guys are making some huge impact moves as well. So we'll talk about Bills Mafia today in a little bit. But before we get to all that, obviously, happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. I was enjoying some green beer earlier this afternoon, took the afternoon off. So I apologize, if I've, maybe a few too many green beers today, but I'll do my best to stay with you guys tonight. And of course, as always, Russell at Russ NFL Draft on Twitter is with us tonight, our Cover One resident draft expert. So Russ, I don't know, we can talk about Davante right out the gate, but before we do that, I guess, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Man, oh man, I wish you wouldn't have said anything. I didn't have anything open. The live reaction off air was hilarious. But what's going on, draft fans? What's going on, NFL? Dude, the NFL has been on absolute cocaine, crack, some type of drug over the last 24 to 48 hours, really the last week. We got Russell Wilson going to the AFC West, Davante Adams going to the AFC West. We got Von Miller going to the Bills. We got Chandler Jones going to the Raiders. Allen Robinson goes to the Rams. Just so much random, pardon my French, but so much random shit. And I love it. But I can't even put my head around it because it's unbelievable. Tom Brady comes back. What in the world is going on? But crazy. We got the Baker Mayfield wants out. Deshaun Watson, we don't know where he's going to go. My mind is, I don't even know. Where do we begin? Where do we begin tonight?
We're all over the place. I just had a nice little kind of skeleton made up about, hey, let's just take a look at the, your mock draft and see how the free agency changes. And there's just so much. I don't know where to start. But again, before we dive in, happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. March Madness going on. It's a great time for sports fans. Love people in the chat already getting at it. And go Bills. What's the Browns going to do? This is the best offseason ever. And it might be. That's from Chief Orley there. This offseason, it's like a reality TV show, man. It's like a reality TV show. The NFL season never ends, man. It's insane. Somebody actually, screw it. We'll just get right into the Adams trade. Somebody on Twitter, can't remember who it was, might have been a local Cleveland beat reporter, was like, man, I would love to have been in the room to see, I would have paid $1,000 to see Aaron Rodgers' reaction to that trade when he read that tweet, because that guy just signed a 4-year contract and then Davante Adams later.
But the thing is, he had to have been in on the process because that's his guy. If you don't, you already had kind of a rocky thing going with Aaron Rodgers, and then you end up trading his guy. You have to have something up your sleeve to be able to do this. And I'm assuming they're getting the 22nd pick, and they love the wide receivers in this draft. So, I'm thinking Chris Olave at 22, if the Packers get that pick. Maybe they just double down. Receiver at 22, another receiver at where they're supposed to be slotted to select. It's crazy. But you have to just think Rodgers was in on this deal. there's no way that he wasn't, in my personal opinion. And Ron says, and I saw him say what up earlier. So what up, Ron? But they should just trade Rodgers. They should. I mean, as a Lions fan, yes, they absolutely should. But I know they're not going to. I mean, I know they're not going to trade him. So this is just, I can't even wrap my head around it until we get like the details of what's being traded, because the fact that it was basically a sign and trade indicates that there's draft capital. There's maybe other players involved. There has to be.
So I got to give a shout out to our boy, Adam Pfeiffer, who has done a lot of good fantasy football work for us. I believe he's from the PFF network. And I'm just scrolling Twitter because I'm trying to see if we can find the compensation going back over to the Raiders. And he put a tweet: the AFC West now features Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Derek Carr, Devonta Adams, Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs, Hunter Renfrow, Russell Wilson, Javonte Williams, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and I'm sure he's forgetting somebody, but holy crap, the AFC West. And, for all the Bills fans out there, we talked about it last episode. I know everybody across the platforms here on Cover One has talked about it for the Bills, specific content. This is good. I almost think this is good for the Bills. You're going to have a much easier shot at home field advantage with the West just absolutely mauling each other, you would assume.
Right. Yeah, no, you would. And Ian Rappaport just tweeted out like 2 minutes ago, so to Mike's comment here, Aaron Rodgers must be pissed. But Rappaport just said, while Aaron Rodgers was negotiating his contract, he knew Devonta Adams would never play for the Packers again. The situation was too far gone. Something had to give. And when Adams informed Green Bay he wasn't playing on the tag, talks got fired up. Now Adams will be on the Raiders. So it's been clear. I mean, we don't know it. The fly on the wall knew it. The Packers knew it. Rodgers knew it. Adams knew it. They all knew it. We just didn't know it. The public didn't know it. The media didn't know it. And, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting what the compensation is going to be. And I'm sure at some point during this show, we'll get that compensation. So just crazy. But, Julio Jones recently released. Does Green Bay just throw a flyer out there on a year and say, hey, come on in, bring him in? Do they bring in a guy like Cole Beasley, who was recently let go by the Bills earlier today? I mean, I don't love Cole Beasley, but you could use him underneath with Randall Cobb. You have Julio Jones. You draft a receiver. You're not looking too bad. Sure, not Devonta Adams, but you're looking a little bit. I mean, you're looking okay. And you got Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you have Aaron Rodgers. He can make anybody look good.
And you still have Allen Robinson out there, that maybe they can go get.
No, he went to the Rams.
Oh, he went to the. Oh, that's right. You went to the Rams earlier today. Correct. You're right.
Yeah, while you were drinking green beer.
Well, I was drinking green beer. You went to the Rams.
Oh, this is a good one from Ron. How about Landry or Juju? Juju would be a good fit.
I think either would be a good fit. I think Landry's a great possession receiver. He was nicked up for the first time really in his career last year in Cleveland, and obviously had some rough quarterback play out of Baker. I think he still has gas in the tank. He's a great run blocker as well, which I think is an underrated aspect of his game. He brings that to the offensive side of the football. So, yeah, I think Landry in Green Bay is a free agent signing. And to your
OBJ?
Point, yeah, OBJ with that knee, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, he's a free agent, right? I don't think he's got a contract. He's a free agent.
Yeah, he's a free agent. For me personally, I just get concerned with the two knee injuries in the same. That's scary to me. But Packers now, it's certainly we would assume they're going to have at least 2 picks in the first round. They're sitting at 20. Raiders are at 22 and they're at 28, right?
Yep.
So yeah, to your point, one of those picks has to be a wide receiver. You would assume.
If it's not, then maybe Aaron Rodgers says, I want out. Then maybe he's like, no, you guys aren't doing anything for me. But yeah, I would have to think a wide receiver. Again, I mentioned Chris Olave. I just think when you think of like natural route runner, good separator at the line of scrimmage, really fluid lower body, kind of similar in a sense to Devonta Adams, maybe not that level, but like Devonta Adams-esque, you think Chris Olave, just Mr. Consistent. And that's like the range that he's falling in, right? Like
right.
He might be the first receiver off the board, but probably unlikely. We're probably talking still Drake London, Garrett Wilson, one of those two guys. So they'll be gone probably about by 22. And then at that point, you're talking Chris Olave. So again, they have free agency options, but wow, what a way to start the show on the free agency show. But let me just spin this over to the Cleveland Browns and Baker Mayfield, because that's got to have an impact. I mean, I don't think he's going to get traded, but maybe he does, depending on what happens with Deshaun Watson. And I think that all ties together, because if Deshaun Watson goes to Atlanta, they're not going to keep Matt Ryan. They're going to move Matt Ryan. So does Matt Ryan go to maybe Cleveland? and Baker goes to Houston or Seattle? Or, I mean, how does this all shake up? Because I have no idea.
Yeah, so great point. I just want to, shout out to PJ and Chewy. PJ, we'll get to your question here in a little bit when we transition over some Bills talk. Real quick, Chewy, the trade was Devonta Adams to the Raiders. We don't know the compensation yet. You guys could probably break it to us at some point, honestly, in the chat. Looked like it was 2 prime 2022 picks was what was rumored. So we're assuming they're going to get the 22nd pick in the NFL draft. And then, obviously the Packers also have their 28th pick. So I think that could impact the Bills. We'll get to the Bills here in a little bit because we were thinking about wide receiver possibly there, at least in your first mock at 25. And now who knows? Maybe one of those guys will be off the board at 22. But some good Bills questions. As far as the Browns goes, yeah, I mean, what a crazy week as a Brown. I'm a Browns fan. For those of you just joining and haven't talked, haven't heard me talk in the past. I'm here in Cleveland, and the Baker Mayfield wars have been going on all last year. Half the fan base, I feel on Twitter, kind of wants to move on. The other half defends him, like he can do no wrong. And, I think Baker probably falls somewhere in the middle of that, as an actual football player. He played through injury last year. But, yeah, the Browns, there's conflicting reports. The Browns supposedly, according to certain folks, told Baker that they were going to, potentially kick the tires on any elite quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson, for them, fell in that category. Other folks are saying they didn't give him that benefit of the doubt. And Baker, for all the emotion and passion he brings to the table, that also gets the best of him, I feel, in a lot of situations, especially in social media. So he kind of put up the breakup letter on Instagram this week, not saying he's gone for sure, but kind of like, hey, and now he requested a trade here today. But, to answer your question, I don't think the Browns are going to trade him. I really don't. I mean, unless they have another option, if they go out there and say, okay, hey, we know we want to get Jimmy Garoppolo, for example, and we know we want to make that happen. Maybe they then trade Baker to the Colts or to Seattle. I think they would probably try to get him out of the AFC just so they don't have to deal with that. Seattle, I think, is probably a destination that makes, some sense there. But, I don't know. I think they're going to – if I'm the Browns, I'm like, hey, be a professional, man up. You got 1 year. Who knows? I mean, think about the relationship the Aaron Rodgers and the Packers had going into this past season. That was supposed to be over. Rodgers wasn't even going to maybe show up to camp, and now he just signed a $200 million extension. So things can change, and winning cures some things. So who knows? Maybe they can kind of mend that relationship. He has to play the 1 year in Cleveland, and if they, do some winning, you never know. But it's crazy.
I think the thing with Cleveland too that maybe we all overlook is the fact that they do have the 13th pick of the draft. They are in the middle of the quarterbacks of this draft. So while it makes sense for them to go out and get that veteran, whether it is a Matt Ryan or a Jameis or Jimmy G, which is all possible, they're very much in the running for potentially, Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell, who, Sam Howell was compared to Baker Mayfield at one point. So maybe you get a Sam Howell and you lose, maybe you lose some upside, but maybe you lose any off the field problems. I don't think I think Baker kind of gets a bad rap, if I'm going to be honest. Sure, there's things that he does that's like, okay, dude, you're being an idiot. But at the same time, this past season, dude, he played through so many injuries, and the fact that he's not getting a pass for that is insane to me. And the fact that he's just getting basically put to the curb, it's it just doesn't make any sense. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but we have this obviously with Adams. Now the report that going into our show was that any moment we were going to hear about Deshaun Watson. So I'm patiently waiting in the next 40 minutes or so for Deshaun Watson announced to be traded to either New Orleans or Atlanta. I feel like those are the two teams in the running. I don't think it's going to be Carolina. I don't think Carolina is going to part with the players that Houston wants to get, but New Orleans has no problem doing anything. The salary cap is fake for that team. It doesn't exist. In Atlanta, I have a hard time believing in Atlanta because Matt Ryan's been there for so long, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think Atlanta seems to be the leader in the clubhouse right now. There's a couple of folks I follow that are kind of on the inside. It appears, at least, from an Atlanta sports Twitter situation. It looks like they might be the leaders in the clubhouse at this point. From a Browns perspective, I'm actually kind of happy they're out of that. They're whatever you're gonna have to give up, whether it's 2-1s and some players or 3-1s and players, the Browns, have other holes that they need to fill. So to answer Chewy's question here, what, besides quarterback, what are the Browns' biggest needs in the draft? And, I think there's two huge needs. There's wide receiver, which, without Landry and OBJ, and now Rashard Higgins also left free agency to Carolina, you really only have Donovan Peoples-Jones. And Anthony Schwartz. They signed Jakeem Grant, but he's really a kick returner. He's really not going to be in the mix at wide receiver. So at 13, a wide receiver makes a ton of sense. But also, as we talked about, defensive line. I mean, they just traded for Chase Winovich, which he's going to be the Browns really have is wide receiver and quarterback. So, wide receiver and defensive line. So now this whole quarterback thing just makes that crazy. One question here for you, Russell. We just talked about Jimmy Garoppolo, and this I got a shout out to my dad. This is my dad. He's listening in apparently. We gave him a shout out to Big Earl Haynes. What other quarterbacks are equal to Baker out there? And I'm sure he would be interested in your opinion. He has my opinion, so I'm sure he'd be interested in your opinion on maybe what quarterbacks the Browns could get that would be equal to Baker right now, or better, or to your point, NFL draft wise, we'll get to this. I think if the Browns took a quarterback in the second round at pick 40, I think that might be something they could target there and still fill a need at 13. So maybe answer that question.
Yeah, well, shout out to your dad first and foremost, but I really think if a Matt Corral or a Sam Howell is there, you can get two players that have similar mobility, can do a variety of things from, zone reads, read options, RPOs, things like that Baker can also do. But also, I just instantly think of like Sam Howell as far as the overall arm strength. You've got the guy that's not afraid to take a shot deep down the field. And I think if you put him in this offense with some of the weapons that they have, I mean, Nick Chubb, you have Amari Cooper now, David Njoku. I know you got rid of Austin Hooper, but you've got some players in this offense where maybe it's a fit for a Sam Howell at pick 40 if he's there. And he very well could be there because, if Detroit doesn't take a QB at 2 or 32, I don't know what teams in the second round are really going to roll the dice outside of maybe the Colts. So maybe they put themselves in a position to move up somewhere from pick 40 or wherever to, let's say, pick 37 or whatever, 36, just move up a couple of spots to guarantee that they get their guy. I think from a draft perspective, Corral and Howell make a lot of sense. Corral has to show that he's not a single read quarterback. That RPO stuff that they ran at Ole Miss was so one read heavy that, he was looking at seam routes or slant patterns, and that was it all day long. So he's got to show that he can go through progressions and go through his reads. So he might fall to that pick 40. And if he's there, that makes sense, especially if you can find a bridge quarterback. Maybe that is Jameis Winston or somebody else. I mean, again, I don't know who that bridge quarterback might be. I mean, is it Case Keenum for a year? It could be. I don't know. So, I mean, there's some options out there. But if you're thinking of like a splashy free agent, I don't see him going after Matt Ryan. I still think that they can settle this thing with Baker Mayfield and figure that out. Beyond that, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, that's the only one that really makes a lot of sense, unless like they somehow were to get, I don't know, Drew Lock, but Drew Lock's in Seattle and it sounds like they like him. So, yeah, I mean, it's more so wait and see at this point. I don't know if Baker's really going to be moved. It seems like he will be, but I have a hard time believing it that we're going to see this quarterback carousel of multiple QBs getting traded basically all at one time in the NFL.
Yeah, and the Browns Twitter was all about David Carr a little bit as a potential option, but that's certainly not happening now. Even when they signed Chandler Jones, probably that wasn't going to happen. Once John Gruden left as well, obviously I think the opinion of Carr changed a little bit there. So yeah, I think that that's off the table. Certainly, from a Browns perspective. Again, we're going to get to the Bills in a little bit. We have some questions going on. What is their need? After free agency here at pick 25, after they've made some really nice moves, in my opinion, from a free agency perspective. At this point, obviously Von Miller was the huge splash signing. We'll get to that in a little bit. But before we get to the Bills, I think the first two picks are interesting. I think going into the draft. Yeah, I think you're right on. I think the Jaguars needed to shore up their offensive line to protect their asset in Trevor Wilson, or excuse me, not Trevor Wilson, Trevor Lawrence. And now, they've made some moves. They franchised Cam Robinson. They got Will Richardson from a tackle perspective. They went and got Brandon Scherf from the Commanders. So they've done some things on the offensive line. So where do you think they're going to go now at number 1? And then how does that potentially impact Detroit sitting there number 2?
Yeah, I mean, it impacts Detroit in a big way because this whole time we thought offensive tackle, and it's very much in the cards because Cam Robinson on a franchise tag does not mean a long-term deal. And if you feel like you have other areas of need at maybe right tackle or one of the guard spots, it would make sense to maybe grab an Evan Neal out of Alabama or an Ike Ekwonu out of NC State, who was kind of the guy that was creeping up boards everywhere for that first overall pick in Ike Ekwonu, because he might have some guard versatility to his game, but also he was a great interview, former wrestler, plays with good leverage, good pad level, the whole 9. So he made sense. But beyond that, I think the way that they've kind of shaped their offense and spent the money, I think that they're going to go with a little bit of a safer pick and go with Aiden Hutchinson, who we know is going to be a good pro. I mean, it would be a shock that if he came in and was just bad. It would be shocking to me, and I think a lot of people. He's going to be a consistent player, a good prospect that develops and probably makes an immediate impact from day one. It's weird that they get rid of guys like Miles Jack and are moving certain defenders around and doing things like that. But I think when you just look at their defense, they're going to need a playmaker up front. I know they took Josh Allen, the defensive end out of Kentucky a few years ago, but I think the way that this thing is trending, they have to look at Aiden Hutchinson and they have to find that guy on the defensive side of the football. They could prove me wrong. They could very well go on the offensive line. I guess they could surprise the hell out of everybody and go like a Kyle Hamilton, which would be very surprising. But I think Hutchinson or Kayvon is the direction they go. And I think for Detroit, the safe pick is one of the edge rushers, whichever one's left, that's their guy. But the way it's pointing, I wouldn't be surprised if they did take a Malik Willis, just because there is a lot of promising upside to his game, from mobility to arm strength to how he's carried himself. That's like, they want good guys for their locker room and culture. They loved him down at the Senior Bowl. They talked really highly of him. If that's their guy, I mean, and it's a rarity for a team in the top 10 to get a firsthand look at a guy, because most of these top 10 quarterbacks, they're not all seniors. They don't go to the Senior Bowl. A lot of the times, you go into this blind outside of a couple of interviews and maybe drawn up on the chalkboard once or twice. Malik Willis, they got an entire week with and got to learn from him. So I think it's one of those things where he could be somebody that surprises all of us and is that second pick. I also think there's a chance for Kyle Hamilton, just because there is that need for that difference maker in your back end. Sure, you signed Tracy Walker, but I mean, there's a chance. I think it'll be Kayvon or Malik Willis. I really do. I think it's going to be one of those players. And again, if Hutchinson is there, that's the guy. But if he's not there, it's Kayvon or Malik for Detroit.
Okay. All right. Well, let's, obviously we always have a lot of Bills Mafia. Shout out to the Bills Mafia. You guys are, really rolling, in my opinion, in free agency.
Killing it.
You're not a part of this quarterback carousel. I actually tweeted out, I think last night or 2 nights ago, when the Baker, everything was hitting the fan there and the Watson stuff was heating up. I was like, man, Brown's Twitter is pretty chaotic. Hopefully I can get another honorary pass on the Bills bandwagon for next year, just so I can, enjoy some good quarterback plays, since my team's all over the place. But let's talk about their free agency and maybe how that impacts them at 25. And I think that potentially this trade, if in fact the Raiders get the 22nd pick, possibly impacts their selection at 25. So I know, when we first kind of started the show and you did your first mock, we talked a lot about them potentially going wide receiver to add another weapon for Josh Allen. They lose Levi Wallace in free agency at the cornerback position. What do you think the Bills should do now at 25, considering losing, a cornerback in free agency? Obviously, they addressed the offensive line a little bit with Roger Saffold. I think that was a great get. OJ Howard, they addressed the defensive line with Tim Settle and Jordan Phillips. Of course, they signed Von Miller, so they get their pass rusher. I'm curious to know what your opinion is on the contract for Von. But, talk about a little bit how you feel about their free agency and what maybe they might do now at 25.
Well, starting with the Von contract, I mean, you look at that and you go, wow, like first and foremost, like that's a lot of money, but it essentially, and I know the Cover One Buffalo guys broke it down really well last night, and I know the Air Raid guys will be talking about it tonight as well. But yeah, I mean, it's essentially like a 3-year deal, like $53 million or something like that, because of all the guarantees and the ability to opt out. And let's be honest, like Is Von Miller going to play another 6 years? I highly doubt it. Could he? Absolutely, he could. Andrew Whitworth never thought he'd make it to 40 playing in the NFL at a high level. Could Von Miller? Absolutely, he could. But will it be with the Bills? We don't know. But it's a lot of money for a guy that can still produce, even if he is on the wrong side of 30. He can still produce, and it's one of those signings that makes an impact because people defensively around the league are going to want to play with a guy like Von Miller. It might allow you to lure in a free agent next year, or maybe another low end free agent at a right price that makes a difference in your secondary. So I think it's a big signing, obviously, but it helps your culture, and it goes to show that Buffalo's on the up and up because for years, for decades, the biggest free agent signing they had was Mario Williams and Terrell Owens, right? Like that was it. And that was when they weren't as good as they are now. And now they get this guy, Von Miller, who is so coveted from across the league. So I think it just goes to show that you were maybe one player or two players away from putting yourself in position to win the Super Bowl, and you were already in that position. Now you might be enough to go all the way to the top. We'll see what happens. But from a draft perspective at 25, wouldn't surprise me if they moved up from 25. Are they the team that moves up from 25 to 16 or 19 or something like that with Philadelphia? Philadelphia has 3 first rounders right there in a row. I find it odd that they would use all 3 picks there. I could see them moving back and adjusting their board a little bit, getting some extra draft capital. And when you look at Buffalo, I mean, there's not really a glaring need. Roger Saffold's a great signing. Really, to me, the glaring needs is a CB2 and a potential slot receiver or just another receiver into the mix. But it's a deep receiver class. You could add Velus Jones at age 24, who I said from the very beginning, put him in Buffalo with Josh Allen, he's going to produce. Put Calvin Austin out there as that speedster, underneath, short intermediate area guy. He's going to produce. Or you trade up and you take the top off of a defense with Jamison Williams and his burst and explosiveness, and you take him. Maybe he's there at 25. Maybe you move up and get him. Or maybe you move up and you get Derek Stingley before New England does at 21. There's a lot of different options there for Buffalo, but I think corner or receiver is the pick in the first round. I would be shocked if it wasn't. And again, maybe they take the luxury and they take Kenneth Walker in the first round. They wanted a running back. They didn't get him in J.D. McKissick, but there's other pass-catching running backs that you can grab in this draft. And, Kyron Williams isn't going to get a lot of love because he doesn't run straight. He doesn't run fast in a straight line, but he can catch passes out of the backfield, and that guy can block. So I think those would be the 3 areas, maybe finding a depth linebacker. And I know our girl Jessica here's in the chat killing it, and she said something about needing a backup quarterback. So there's an option down the road there on the second or third day for sure. But first round, it's got to be a corner or it's got to be a running back or a wide receiver. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to just throw up some of the comments. You're right. The chat's killing it. Chewy need a cornerback badly. Jessica has a couple good comments out there. They eventually need to replace Mitch Morris. They want to talk about backup quarterback. Should we trade up to get a high ceiling quarterback too? Your boy Ron talked about trading up to maybe getting Sauce Williams. So maybe one of those Philly picks. Do you think Sauce would fall to one of those Philly picks? I think you had Sauce fairly high, right? So he's not going to be there for one of those Philly picks.
Yeah, he'll be the first corner off the board for sure.
Okay, so that might be a little bit.
If you can bet that, I would bet that now.
Yeah, let's go find that prop bet and let's go put some money. Let's go put some money on that. I believe there also was a comment about a power running back. I think, running back's still something that the Bills probably could use, and you just mentioned that too. But I think, right now, if you're Buffalo, you're right. You're in a spot where, I think probably, in my opinion, I think the biggest weakness might be the quarterback. I mean, obviously your safeties are very good.
Yeah.
Outside of Tre'Davious White, you probably need some cornerback depth. They did sign Syrian Neal, a 3-year deal, kind of a smaller, depth position there at corner. So I personally, as a Browns fan, as a football fan, I would like to see Buffalo shore up that secondary at pick 25. Personally, add another cornerback there. I think there's other ways that you can get wide receivers, whether it's in round 2 or round 3, or maybe still in even free agency. We mentioned a ton of potential wide receivers, going to Green Bay. Who knows? Maybe Landry goes to Buffalo. I know a lot of Buffalo fans probably would hate that because they rooted against him for so long, and I know he had a rough hit back in the day, a little perceived as a dirty player. But once he puts on the Bills uniform, it probably turns some of those opinions around. So I think they could get wide receiver maybe somewhere else. And I just think personally, cornerback is probably the bigger need there because Josh Allen, I think, can make a lot of people better. But yeah, the Bills, you guys, Bills Mafia guys, you're in a great spot. I think you are going to, continue to fill out some things in free agency and make a nice pick. That front office is killing it. So congratulations to you guys so far in free agency.
Yeah, no, for sure. Shout out PJ, saying thank you guys. Love watching you too. Appreciate you watching. Love obviously delivering the content. I agree with Steve here though. Josh needs a second.
Just for that PJ comment, I haven't poured it yet. So we're gonna do a little bourbon for PJ and for Bills Mafia and just NFL
sick
in general.
Bastard.
I know. I'm a crazy. It's St. Patrick's Day. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Jeez Louise. Josh needs a second elite weapon. I agree. I think Jameson Williams could be there. If he is, you take him. Because again, I think Garrett Wilson and Drake London are going to be the top two. And a lot of comments are coming in like we're signing off. We still got like 20, 25 minutes, folks. Hang tight, gang. We're not done here yet. I will say
I still like the love. It's mid-show love. I like it. It's mid-show.
I do.
Love.
It's awesome.
It's halftime.
I was looking at the time. I was like, wait, are we wrapping this thing up? No, we got time. Time.
No.
Yeah, the guy just poured a shot.
Air raid at 9 o'clock. Yeah, definitely stick around the later. Air raid up at 9 o'clock here on the Cover One Network. But I'm sorry, sir. Continue.
No, I'm just reading the comments. I'll get into the Fletcher Cox thing here in a second from Philadelphia, but really good comment here. Would love to double dip in the draft at corner like we did at defensive end last year. Completely agree, Mitch. Tariq Woolen is my late round draft crush. 6'4", 429 40. WTF. Absolutely. I said the same thing. I mean, you look up his like spider web graph and it's like it's unheard of for the position. I don't know if he's going to be a late round pick though. I think after that combine, he's probably a top 75 pick. Because just simply is specifically top 100, you can take that to the bank. But top 75 is probably likely for the simple fact that you get that athleticism, you get some traits, you're going to bet on that. A team is going to draft him. And there's plenty of teams with multiple second day draft picks where they're like, yep, going to roll the dice on this kid, and this kid. And one of them's going to cash. And that's just how it is. So the Bills might have to take him a little bit sooner than they expected. Like kind of, they took, I don't want to say they took Spencer Brown too early because Spencer Brown was very solid last year, but like they took Spencer Brown, I think a little bit sooner than most people expected. So yeah, one thing we didn't talk about, I know I mentioned Fletcher Cox. We can get into that, but for the Bills, how about OJ Howard? Can we get some love on that? I love that move. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm still caught up in the fact that I had OJ Howard as a top 10 player when he was coming out, but I love this move to pair him with Dawson Knox. I love it. So I don't know what your take.
Yeah, no, especially with some of the contracts that other tight ends have been receiving. I feel like the tight end position group is just cashing in this free agency period, more so than in the past. So I think that the OJ Howard signing is nice to pair with Dawson Knox. I mean, he obviously is a pass catching threat. He's been kind of in a weird situation for a while down there, in Tampa Bay. And I just, I just think he's going to provide. He provides a nice target for Josh Allen to work with. And, Dawson Knox, I really like Dawson, but, he's been a slightly injury prone. I don't think that's a trend or anything, but it's never bad to have another pass catching option, that has the size that OJ has to work that seam and be a red zone target for Josh Allen. So, yeah, I think that's a great under the radar type signing that, isn't going to nab the hugest headline, but could be very impactful this year for sure.
Yeah, and it's a good deal, like Ron just mentioned. 1 year, $3.5 million deal, dirt cheap. I mean, it's just perfect. I did want to go back to the cornerback conversation. We got great tight end conversation here, but Silas made a good, point here. Trade up for Sauce with Carolina. I hope he's still watching the live stream here. I'm just curious what you're going to trade. I know you have draft capital. You can move some players and things like that, but to go from 25 to 6. That's going to cost you some capital, my friend. And I know you're in win now mode. Go get your guy. I'm for it. But I don't see the Bills doing that. I think, again, maybe 25 to 15 or 16, that could make sense. Maybe it's 14 with Baltimore or something. But I don't see them going basically 20 spots. I don't see that.
So outside of Sauce, I mean, I know you were high. You already kind of mentioned Derek Stingley. We haven't talked about Andrew Booth, though. I think you originally had him mocked kind of in that range to, I think, Philly. So, what's your thoughts still on Andrew Booth? Is he still maybe in that range? Could he potentially fall to 25 anyways? That could be, is that maybe a good fit for Buffalo? What's your thoughts on Andrew Booth?
Yeah, I mean, I like Andrew Booth a lot. I like the physicality that he brings. I think he's a relatively fluid athlete. I think there's definitely times with his lower body as far as his overall footwork. He gets kind of caught up and trips over himself or just a little too slow in and out of his breaks, especially with his back pedal. And when you want him to kind of click and then close, it's not always there. But I like how competitive he is. I like that he's aggressive. But the problem is he's been hurt this entire pre-draft process. So he's had the quad injury, which is a big problem. It basically he didn't do anything at the combine, couldn't do the pro day. Now he's having core muscle surgery. So it's one of those things where he's going to fall down boards and he might just fall into your lap at 25. Teams might take him, but when you think back to Caleb Farley last year, this happened to him during the pre-draft process. He fell all the way to pick, I want to say 21 or 22 to the Titans last year, and they ended up taking him. Booth could certainly go there to New England or something, but I certainly believe Stingley or Booth, one of those guys is going to fall into the late teens, early 20s, if not closer to the back end of the first round. And if the Bills are sitting there and that guy falls to them, I think you take him. You roll the dice. But at the same time, we mentioned double dipping at corner. If you get Booth in the first round, cool. And maybe you take Tariq Woolen early in the third round or something like that, or late in the second round, and you double down like you did last year at defensive end. So I think it's possible. Silas says, to move up for Sauce this year and next year's ones, a 4 this year and a 4 next year. I mean, that's a hefty price. If you think he's going to be that guy, you're talking, that's a quarterback type of, not corner, a quarterback haul as far as the premium that you're paying for a rookie corner. And I love Sauce. Top corner, Metro Detroit kid. I'm rooting for him hard at the next level, but I'm just saying that's a lot for a corner. But they've moved around before. They were able to land Trey White. Maybe they can do it here for their next corner, whoever it is. But it's a deep corner draft overall. Cam Taylor-Britt out of Nebraska, Mario Goodrich out of Clemson, Darian Kendrick out of Georgia. Go ahead and write him off. He ran a 4.75 during his pro day. You cannot draft that. But no, there's some talent there that they can select that guy. So we'll see. I'm just rambling here, but I'm just reading these chat. This chat is on fire tonight.
So here's one that Chewy, would you guys trade the Bills? Would the Bills trade the 25th pick for Saquon? My take on Saquon is absolutely not. I would not trade the 25th pick in the draft for Saquon Barkley. I know the Bills need a more dynamic running game. I just can't get over his injury history. I'm just so concerned that he's going to continue to be injury prone throughout his career. So no, I think that adding either a wide receiver or cornerback is more valuable to you guys, and continue to look for running backs, in other capacities later in the draft potentially, or, maybe even still through free agency. I personally just don't think the Bills offense needs Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley or something like that to be effective and be a Super Bowl caliber offense. So I think that you can use those picks for, in my opinion, more valuable positions like cornerback, like wide receiver, and not pay that price for a guy that personally I think is going to get hurt again. And some of this, to tie in the Cover One Fantasy Football show that, we'll start up again here this summer that I co-host with Greg Thompson and Anthony Prohaska. He's a big question mark fantasy wise too. I would not spend first round picks on him in fantasy either. So similar concept here. No, I wouldn't take that risk, and I would use that pick for something that is more valuable position wise.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I kind of agree with this. Go sign somebody like a Melvin Gordon, save your pick, and go elsewhere. But again, I like a lot of the running backs in this draft. Just go draft another running back. It's fine. Go draft James Cook in the third round if he's there, or go get Hassan Haskins out of Michigan, or be the first team to take a running back in the first round. It doesn't matter. You have the luxury to do whatever you want here. Just because we're saying in the preference is corner or receiver, that doesn't mean it's the right answer. It could be the wrong answer. If Kenneth Walker's your guy, go draft him. That's fine. No big deal. You don't normally do that in the first round, but I tell you what, I'd much rather have that running back with the fifth year option, and know that I have him for the next 5 years during this window of Von Miller and everything else than anything else. But I wouldn't trade for Saquon for the contract, for the injury history. I would start fresh. Just like you said, great points there. And again, with this comment, sign Melvin Gordon. I don't know if you can fit Gordon into your budget. I mean, I guess you can. If the Saints do it, anybody can do anything they want in this world. So it just goes to show anything is possible.
Apparently the salary cap is just completely, like, I kind of thought, I never really believed in the salary cap anyways, but after this offseason, I definitely don't think anyone should ever be concerned about the salary cap ever. There's always ways around the salary cap, it seems. If the Saints get they trim, like, I think they trim like $60 million in salary or something like that to get $80 million in salary to get to like 29 under the cap to potentially deal with Deshaun Watson. So yeah, restructuring contracts, paying out signing bonuses, and again, Greg Thompson over on Cover One is fantastic. He's kind of in my opinion, at least, a resident capologist with Cover One. So he does a great job with that stuff. I'm sure most of you already follow him, but if you're not on Bills Mafia and you're listening to the show, follow Greg Thompson, even for non-Bills fans, because he does a great job with salary cap questions. And I'm sure if you send him a question about your team, he'd be happy to look into it and break it down. But
even with the Von Miller contract that popped up last night, I mean, they released it and instantly he was like, okay, 3 years, $56 million or whatever the hell he said. Yep. But it was like, how do you know that so fast? Like, I need to wait for it all to come out on a spreadsheet so I can look at it and be like, yep. Okay, I got you. But he connects the dots just so fast when it comes to those numbers. So he does a great job. But our boy Pops Mafia, what guard might be available in the third round? Might lose Bates. Yeah, it looks like Bates might be going to, I believe it was the Vikings I saw earlier. I got a couple for you. I know our boy Ron was saying Ed Ingram. That's a fine fit. I think that's almost like a plug and play type of guy. But personally, if I'm going offensive guard in the third round, I'm looking at Marquise Hayes out of Oklahoma. Love the way he plays. He kind of throws his body around. I think of like old wrestlers or current wrestlers or whatever that do like that running splash or whatever. Like that's the type of guy that he would
suicide dive, baby. Suicide dive.
Yeah. Running sentons and things like that. Like that's just like that would be his go-to for sure. But I think, he would be really fine in the run game. Just he's a mauler, really heavy hands, good grip. But another name as well would be Lecitus Smith. I love Lecitus Smith out of Virginia Tech. I've had him on the podcast before, which you can go back and watch. I've had him on an interview here on YouTube with Zach Hicks last year before he declared for the draft. So he's somebody that as well kind of mauls, needs to work on his core strength a little bit, but really good job at climbing at the second level, good reach blocker, things like that. So I think he's an overall good player that could be there in the third round. So they should be able to find a guard as well. And that's the thing. There's some really talented deep positions for the Bills when we talk about finding a running back, a receiver, a corner, a guard. They've done themselves some favors with the free agent signings that they've had. So yeah, he's got shorter arms. That's a good point. And he loses leverage at times, but he's strong enough to, I think, fix that. And he's able to reset his hands and just do certain things that some guards can't do despite the short arms. So I think he's going to be just fine. But I did want to go to the Fletcher Cox thing because
real quick
I think
before you go to Fletcher, and you meant you had a wrestling reference. So I'm going to do a wrestling. I want to tip one up to Scott Hall. Any wrestling fans that are out there, Razor Ramon unfortunately passed away this week. Too sweet. I'm a big wrestling fan. Me and Anthony Praska go back and forth on it. I think we should do a Cover One wrestling podcast personally, but pour one out for Scott Hall. He was a big influence, to a lot of wrestlers, and anybody that likes watching that, he was pretty awesome. So go ahead, but I'd want to give Scott a little cheers up there in heaven.
Yeah, for sure. No, he's the man, dude. Say hello to the bad guy. Oh, look at that. R.I.P. That's awesome. But yeah, Fletcher Cox released today from New England, from Philly. And it's surprising to me because I get it. You're saving money, but I feel like this team in Philly has got some things that, I'm just thrown off now because we got wrestling comments coming in and I'm like, let's go, baby. Absolutely.
He would be very happy to know that all of a sudden we took a quick little turn down some wrestling rabbit holes to know that he's influencing this conversation. So appreciate all those comments. And again, I'm sure, he's smiling up there with his toothpick.
Yeah, for sure. But no, yeah. So with Fletcher Cox, I mean, he's a free agent. Could he potentially be a Buffalo Bill? That's an option. If you want to talk about a guy that can go right in the middle of your defense with some of the edge rushers that you have. Beyond that, though, I mean, I think of like the Chargers. I don't know what some of these teams' cap space looks like right now. I don't have it pulled up, but I think of the Chargers, like for a long time, if you look at my mock drafts from a month and a half ago or whatever, I had Jordan Davis go there at 17. I don't even know if Jordan Davis is going to be there at 17. Sure, they could take Devontae Wyatt or Leal out of Texas A&M, but they need a defensive tackle because they've lost 3 of them unless they re-sign one of them. But 3 of their key guys are on the market right now: Linville Joseph, Christian Covington, and Justin Jones, who's been there since a rookie. So they could look at a Fletcher Cox and put him right in the middle of that defense. I think of Dallas as well. Some of the moves that they've made, they've lost Randy Gregory. They've kind of cut a couple of players. So they've cleared up some space. They obviously will have some dead cap money, but they've cleared up some space. So maybe they look at potentially a Fletcher Cox if he wants to stay on the division. But yeah, this is the $1 million question on it. What is his demand and salary? I don't know. I have no idea what he's going to want. I just know that the Eagles, I think, saved close to $18 million by letting him go. But I was curious, what's your thought on him being let go? Would you be interested, obviously, in Cleveland going that route? I know that's been a conversation of maybe adding a defensive tackle, but it might be a little too rich.
Yeah, you're right. They will save $18 million. That was going to become guaranteed. And, I think the Browns, obviously, again, the funny money, right? You can maneuver the cap. They have Case Keenum that's actually going to be guaranteed some money here on Saturday. So we're actually curious to see if he stays on the roster or not at the salary. Of course, with the Baker uncertainty, you would assume so, but you never know. But I guess my point of that is if they're going to sign Fletcher Cox, my guess is, from an annual salary perspective, he's still going to command a decent amount of money, probably somewhere in the $10 to $12 million range. So, I don't know that they have the luxury to put that type of salary at defensive tackle for that veteran right now with the uncertainty at quarterback and Baker Mayfield. And I don't know that they know the direction they're going in right now. I think they have the roster that they're supposed to be competing, but now there's so many questions, like how do you compete without a quarterback first and foremost, and then no wide receivers? So I think there's other, areas that are of need. I don't think they're going to go out there and spend that type of money at defensive tackle, although they certainly need to add defensive tackle help as well as edge help, even with getting, 2 small signs, again, the Chase Winovich trade. They also signed Taylon Bryant, who was a former first-round pick that didn't really do much in his career to this point at D tackle. So that's an area of need. I don't think Mr. Fletcher Cox is going to be in the Browns' plans, though.
Yeah, I mean, again,
here we go, run back.
Yeah, and Cox could go to New England, Miami. I mean, there's probably a handful of places that he could go. Probably just about any team in the league. So it's gonna be really interesting to see where he lands. I instantly thought of LA. I guess we could throw the Raiders in there, even though they've spent a ton of money, but maybe they make a 1-year pitch to him to go there. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know what and I guess we could say Jacksonville just because of Doug Peterson and things like that. Maybe that's potential. I mean, a lot of players, it feels like later in their career, they end up going to a team down in Florida just to kind of get that tax-free money in a sense. Yeah. So maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But Ron Beck, the terms of the trade is in. Adams trade Raiders gave up number 22 and 53 in 2022. So good for the Packers. They got some extra draft capital. I wouldn't have traded Devontae Adams if it was me. I would have paid him. I would have made it work somehow, but that's just me. But yeah, this all points to another wide receiver being drafted to them somewhere, some way.
Yeah, certainly at 22 or 28, they're going to have to get one of those guys. And again, I know we talked about Bills Mafia at length. That could impact Bills Mafia at 25. Although, again, I personally feel cornerback's a bigger than wide receiver at this point. So, I hope they go in that direction. Just as a fan of football in general. But yeah, go ahead. Take Jessica's question there on Zion.
Yeah, thoughts of Zion Johnson out of Boston College. Where do you think he goes? He's going to go in the first round somewhere, for sure. I think Arizona makes a lot of sense. If he gets to Miami, consider it a done deal. If he lasts that far, Miami's a done deal. One of their coaches was previously at Boston College, used to coach Zion Johnson. He's familiar. So don't be surprised if that was the fit. I like Arizona just simply because Why not to add to that offense? But you look at the Cowboys, what they just did with, Collins, they let him go. They lost Connor Williams. Their offensive line is kind of in shambles right now. So Zion Johnson makes a lot of sense if he's there, but it's just a matter if he's there. And if he's not there, again, if he's off the board by then, do the Packers make sense at 22 and then they go wide receiver at 28? It's very possible. I circled to Philadelphia just because Brandon Brooks is gone. I know Jason Kelsey's back. They've got some veterans there, but I circled to Philly just because they have 3 picks, and I think that makes the most sense. But obviously we'll see. But I think he's a first-round player. I mean, he's a great reach blocker, great work ethic, great just overall frame, very stout, just yoked for a player of his size and his weight and in length. And he's just, he can play all 5 positions if you need him to. So I love the player. I think he's going to be a stud. And I think whoever gets him is going to be really beneficial to have him. So I know we're running up on that 8:30 to 8:40 time that we like to shoot for. Maybe we go in, I don't know, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, we're getting great. We're getting great interaction. Again, air raid's coming up at 9:00, so definitely tune into them. 9:00 here on the Cover One podcast network. We're going to stick with you for another 10 minutes. We got a lot of activity in chat. We got a lot of people with eyes on the show right now, so we want to keep it rolling here for 10 more minutes. I'm curious. I had a question for you. Before you made that comment. Obviously Bills Mafia is interested in wide receiver talent. To keep the fastball, as Vlad said here, which is certainly and it's certainly a good thought. Hey, keep your strength strong, right? But what are some wide receivers maybe in round 2? Because we haven't talked a ton about round 2, round 3 yet that are down there. 57 Buffalo, 59 Green Bay. Right now, I think we're talking about both those teams kind of at the same time because obviously they both have wide receiver needs now and are picking around each other, so they could impact each other's draft plans. Let's say the Bills take a cornerback, whether they trade up or take one at 25, and fill that need at CB2 via the draft. Who might be there for them that you think could be a good fit to keep the fastball fast and keep the strength of that team from an offensive standpoint by maybe taking a round 2 wide receiver?
Well, Christian Watson makes a lot of sense. Calvin Austin makes a lot of sense. I've seen both names pop up already here in the chat as 2 of those guys. I mean, Christian Watson, it's rare to see a guy run a sub 4.4 at 6'4", 208. I mean, the fact that he did that is impressive in itself. He's got great length, really good lower body flexibility, which is important to have that type of speed to challenge a defense vertically, but also, when you need a guy to break in and out of his routes to have that flexibility and length, it's key because he'll be tough to guard at the catch point, and you're going to need a corner that's got length. So if you put him in the slot and he's able to run a 10 or 12 or 15 yard post, and he's got somebody matched up on him in man coverage, if that nickel's only 5'9", 5'8", 5'9", he's going to struggle against that 6'4" receiver. So I think that's the important thing when you look at Christian Watson. He's got great length, great speed for the position. I think can kind of win in all 3 areas of the field. Same thing with Calvin Austin. While he might struggle with 50-50 balls, he's got the speed to win vertically. Short and intermediate areas of the field, forget about it. The guy can just do really whatever he wants in those areas of the field because he's got that track speed, super fluid. Another name that doesn't get mentioned as much is probably Khalil Shakir out of Boise State. He might be more of that 3rd or 4th round pick, kind of like that Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he's kind of that ready-made receiver that's going to go day 2 of the draft, and he's going to come in and he's probably going to produce at some point. And I think it's just because he's already kind of got that pro mentality as a route runner and as with his release package. So he's somebody that when he releases off the line of scrimmage, he's got multiple different moves that he can use. He's not one-dimensional. So he might be a little bit on the lighter side, might be a little bit undersized compared to like a Christian Watson. He's not 6'4", he's 5'10", 5'11". But he's just one of those guys that I think when you bring him in, you get kind of a ready-made receiver, and you could feel that impact. So if we get a run of receivers, the kind of the top 6, and maybe David Bell and George Pickens are gone, Christian Watson's gone. Khalil Shakir, Calvin Austin, Christian Watson, those guys might be kind of the next best option for a team. But I would like to throw George Pickens in this conversation, but I think at that point in the draft, I think he might already be gone, to be completely honest.
Okay. All right. You know what? Russ, I one more question as we kind of bring it home tonight, and it's a question that we we could probably talk about it for a long time, but maybe, we'll go over the next couple minutes. Again, kind of staying in the AFC East, because, again, we've got a lot of good Buffalo Bills chatter going on here. What have you thought about maybe some of the free agent moves, the competition the Bills have to face in the East have done between the Patriots, between the Jets, between the Dolphins? Personally, from my standpoint, I don't see a lot of impactful moves right now in free agency by those teams. Maybe I'm being, again, I feel like I'm going to end up being a Bills fan by the end of this thing, equal to Browns fandom at some points. Maybe that's me being optimistic, but I don't personally see a ton there in free agency. But talk a little bit about the free agency that those three teams have had, and or maybe if that's impacted their draft position a little bit, because obviously the Jets have some high picks in the draft. They're sitting there sitting there at 4 as well as 10, so they have some high picks in the draft. New England sitting there at 21, which you already talked about, potentially a cornerback going there. So what's your thoughts on their free agency at this point, considering the Bills have to go up against those teams in the AFC East?
Well, starting with Miami, I think that they've probably had some of the most impactful signings. Cedric Wilson, I think, is a really good signing for them. Kind of was under the radar for a little bit of time in Dallas. But you look at just, Trent Sheffield, who's familiar with the offense, being a former 49er, Alec Ingold. I love the fullback signing, Raheem Mostert, Chase Edmonds. I love those two additions to the backfield. And, you knew Miami was going to add running backs because they've already, the head coach he's already made it obvious. He's going to put an emphasis on running the football. He knows it's important. So I love, hey, Detroit's next to Lake Erie too. So we're in this together, baby. Let's go.
Actually, real quick on that, Jessica. I don't know if you follow me on Twitter. Hit me up on Twitter. One of the Bills boys always sends me a logo of it's basically the Bills, the Lions, and the Browns logo combined with the elf riding like the lion with the Bills / it's hilarious. So
we're in this together.
Lake Erie brothers and sisters. We need to unite. We need to stay, have each other's backs.
Exactly. But no, yeah, I mean, Connor Williams, they've done a lot of additions offensively. And I think it's just like, that's something to keep tabs on when you bring in an offensive minded head coach. It's important to know. And you got a young quarterback in Tua with Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, some established guys. So you bring in these pieces, it might get going offensively, and it might be enough to maybe win some football games that maybe they weren't expected to win. New England, nothing splashy. I mean, obviously moving on from Chase Winovich makes sense. It wasn't working out, but they added Mac Wilson to the middle of the defense. I don't like getting rid of Shaq Mason. That was a little bit of a surprise, only for a 5th round pick, but they're an interesting team. That's all about Mac Jones. I mean, it's just about Mac Jones. If he can continue to progress, who knows? But they didn't make any crazy splashy moves. I thought maybe they'd be a team that like adds a James Daniels or something like that. They didn't. And then just with the Jets, I mean, I like the tight ends that they added, Conklin and Uzama. I really like those signings. I like Laken Tomlinson. Connor McDermott's a fine signing as well. But overall, defensively, DJ Reed, Jordan Whitehead, very nice signings to their secondary. They're just they're the questionable team again as well, because it's just a second-year quarterback in Zach Wilson. And these are two teams that they've got to figure it out at quarterback. They've got to play not to the caliber of Josh Allen. I mean, to win it all, yeah, probably. To win the whole division, probably. But to maybe get a wild card spot, they got to just play better than they did last year. But the Jets made some fine signings. Again, the Dolphins, I think, have crushed it as well. So we'll see. But it's nothing compared to the Bills. And I still think that they're the favorite, and maybe the favorite in the AFC at this point.
Yeah, no, definitely, in my opinion, favor the AFC East for sure. But, we are hitting right at the hour mark here. We definitely want to get out of here in time for everyone to take a breather, grab another drink, get ready for the
green beer, baby.
You're at 9 o'clock, get some green beer or some whiskey here on St. Patrick's Day. Again, everybody in the chat, I mean, can't appreciate you guys enough. You were the real MVPs tonight. It's always a fun show when we have this much interaction in the chat. Obviously a great night tonight from just NFL, everything going on. You were able to talk about the Devontae Adams trade right off the rip, right as the show started. Great insight as always. That was nuts. Great insight as always from Russell Brown. Again, the resident Cover One draft expert here at Russ NFL Draft on Twitter. Follow me at Burn River Sports on Twitter. Please hit the like button. please hit the subscribe button to Cover One. I mean, there's tons of great content on Cover One, especially if you're a Bills fan. But even if you're not, again, follow Greg Thompson for some cap stuff. I mean, he does a great job with different cap things. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Again, we really, really appreciate all of you guys. Happy St. Patty's Day. Russell, any final comments for the boys and girls out there?
Too sweet, brother. Too sweet.
Too sweet. Too sweet. All right, everybody. This is, again, Russell Brown and Richard Haynes. We are signing off tonight on the Cover One Network NFL Draft Show. Have a good one, everybody.